What is up, everyone? It is Rachel. Welcome back to my channel. Today's video is super exciting because today we are going to be talking about some law school acronyms. Going into the law school admissions process, there are a bunch of acronyms. It might feel like you are learning a new language. Similar to when I am proofreading attorney briefs at work, there could be like 5 acronyms in a sentence. It sounds like acronym soup. So today we are going to go over some common acronyms that hopefully will help you all with this process. So if you're new to my channel, hello, my name is Rachel. I graduated from UC Berkeley in the class of 2020, where I double majored in cognitive science and legal studies. I worked for 2 years as a paralegal at an IP law firm, and now I'm currently working as a paralegal in environmental law litigation. So without further ado, let's get into this video. First up is LSAC, which stands for the Law School Admissions Council. This organization is similar to the College Board. When you are taking the SAT applying to undergraduate colleges, LSAC is basically the organization that runs all of the law school stuff, the LSAT, all of the law school admissions. When you're applying to law schools, you would have to sign up and make an account on the LSAC website. Next up is the LSAT, which stands for the Law School Admissions Test. This is the main entrance exam that students take when applying to law schools, or nowadays law schools are also accepting the GRE, but most students do take the LSAT. Similar to the SAT when applying for undergrad colleges, you would take the LSAT before or when you're applying for law school. So it's something you're taking before you even start as a law student. It is a part of your admissions process, like taking the SAT or ACT for undergrad. I do have other LSAT videos on my channel. If you were interested, I'll have a few linked down below. Next up is CAS, which stands for Credential Assembly Service. I talked a little bit about CAS in my How Much Applying to Law School Costs video, which I'll also link down below. So CAS is something that you pay a one-time fee for on the LSAC site, and then you also pay a recurring fee every time you submit a law school application. And what CAS does, it's basically like creating your score reports. So when you upload your transcripts, it will create your LSAC GPA. So your LSAC GPA is a little bit different from your raw undergraduate institution's GPA that you're seeing on your transcripts. CAS will take those transcripts and then run it through their system and then calculate your LSAC GPA. CAS, when you're applying to law schools, will also compile all of your score report things. So it's compiling your transcripts for schools, your letters of recommendation, things like that. So that's why you're paying all of those extra fees. When people talk about CAS, it's not necessarily something that you have to do as the applicant, but you do have to pay for it and then upload your transcripts, get your letters of rec, things like that. Speaking of, next is LOR or LOR, which stands for Letter of Recommendation. For law schools, similar to applying for undergrad schools, they may or may not require letters of rec. Typically, most schools are going to require at least 1, probably 2 letters of rec, and they might accept up to 3 or 4 letters of recommendation. A lot of people say that the rule of thumb would be to have 2 academic letters of recommendation. If you've worked full-time for a handful of years, then having a professional letter of recommendation would suffice in lieu of an academic, or having 3 letters of recommendation, 2 academic, 1 professional would work as well. So if you're a student, if you're working full-time, something to start thinking about. Next up is PT, which stands for LSAT Practice Test. So when you're studying for the LSAT online, in forums, amongst colleagues and friends, you might say that you're taking a PT, which means that you're taking a practice test. So for me, when studying for the LSAT, I would take a full-length timed PT on Saturdays, maybe go through my answers and do blind review. Sundays, go through my answers again, write why I got questions right, write why I got questions wrong down in my notes. Basically, my weekends were studying for the LSAT. Basically, it's a shortened way of saying you're taking a practice test, you're studying. Next up is KJD. This is a term used for students applying to law school straight out of undergrad. So KJD means that you are a student who went from kindergarten, K, to law school, JD. So there's no breaks in between. You didn't start working full-time after undergrad, but you went straight through from undergrad to law school. On the flip side, if you weren't KJD, so I wouldn't be KJD since I've been working full-time for the past 3 years, I would say I'm like NKJD, so like not kindergarten through JD. This term is used a lot online, on like Reddit, forums, things like that. When students are describing themselves as an applicant, they might say they are KJD, or they might say they have X number of years of work experience. This term is used to describe yourself on the internet. Next is PS, personal statement. This is also used a lot online when you are talking about writing your application materials for law school. So basically, every law school requires a PS, a personal statement. They might call it something different at their law school. This is like a 1 to 4 page personal statement. There aren't necessarily prompts for this statement. Some schools might give you like talking points of things that they suggest you discuss, but it's very, very open-ended. You might talk about your story, you might talk about why you're interested in law school, a writing space for you to share who you are as a person, what maybe drew you to the law. This is the main essay that you're writing. A lot of schools also, similar to undergrad, have those supplemental essays that you would write for each law school. The personal statement you might have to change based off of different restrictions, so like a word count or a page limit, things like that you might have to switch and edit between each school. So next up is the word splitter, which means that you are above a school's LSAT median and below that school's GPA median. So this term is used a lot online as well because students are looking up those medians for the schools that they're applying to. So similar to KJD, online students might say that they're a splitter, which would mean you're above that LSAT median, below that GPA median, based off of looking at these schools. So on places like Reddit, students would be describing themselves this way when they're talking about admissions, talking about their applications, talking about themselves, giving those stats and background details about themselves on these online forums. So that is one term. It also has a sister term in reverse splitter, which is the opposite of a splitter. It means you're above that school's GPA median, but below that school's LSAT median. So just another way to describe yourself as an applicant. You might also say you are above both medians or below both medians, depending on what your scores are, depending what that school's medians are. So you might see these terms floated around the internet a lot. Next up is the word softs, which are soft factors. These are part of your law school application, separate from scores like your LSAT and GPA. So this could be a whole separate video explaining softs, because then there are also different tiers to the softs, but the softs are factors like your work experience, your undergraduate major, the classes you've taken, extracurricular activities, your volunteering, how you spend your free time. So when thinking of like holistic review, softs are looking more at your story, your background, the activities you were involved in, and how that makes you a law school applicant. Next up, we're going into the tiers rankings. Online, you might hear a lot of people say T14. These are the top 14 law schools based on the US News reports. This sort of bit iffy nowadays with the changing of law school rankings, especially with, schools coming into and out of the top 14 ranked law schools. Online, people will say T14. Some schools that might be out of the T14 right now but are typically usually in it might just be included in the top 14. It's basically a way of saying the top law schools. People might also say T6 or T5 to represent the top 5, top 6 law schools. So if you know what the top law schools are, then these are basically just lumped together. But the term T14 is good to know because this one is talked a lot about online when talking about law school admissions chances, applying to those law schools for employment outcomes after law school. And finally, we are going to be talking about tuition as a term. Online, when people are accepted to law school, you might see if they got any scholarship money from that school, which they will represent by putting dollar signs. So if someone posts and say they got $1 sign, that typically means that they were offered 1/4 of tuition as a scholarship. If they put $2 signs, that typically means half tuition. If they put $3 signs, that means 3/4 of tuition. And if they put $4 signs, that usually means they got a full ride or a full ride plus. So a full ride plus other things like a stipend, other monies, things like that. So yeah, those are some common popular acronyms that you might see in the law school admissions process as well as on the internet. If you have any questions or other videos that you want to see me do, definitely leave a comment down below. Thank you all so much for watching. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up and I will see you all next time.